Today we hear from musician David Francisco, and he tells his adaptive journey of surviving an accident, recovering from life-altering injuries, and forgiving the driver that hit him. And then David Francisco details how he's thriving no matter the challenges. So tune in.
Through that tragedy taught me life is finite. You really have a short window to take what it is from life that you want and enjoy it.
You can go back to that day, February 18, 1990, and change what happened. My honest answer is I wouldn't change it.
You're just going to have to go through it, and your strength is going to be found in simply going through it and being authentic and real in the process.
I was talking with my palliative care doctor today, and she turned around to me and she looked at me and she was like, do you think that you'll eventually beat this? And I was sort of like, yeah, that's probably what I'm trying to do.
No, nothing will ever take away the pain of my daughter not being here. My reality.
Well, I know what my body's going to do to me. I've got a wheelchair in my future. But you know what I've been looking for?
What's that?
One with off-road wheels.
Just remembering me as I am, happy and energetic and full of life, no matter what.
You can expect life to kick you in the teeth, but you always get back up, no matter what, and you just keep going.
Living Adaptive with Scott Davidson.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We have a really good episode today for the Adaptive Nation. But before we jump into that, in case you don't know, head over to livingadaptive.com to find previous episodes, show notes, contacts for guests, links to social media accounts, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Also, check out our highlights on Instagram. We have a bunch of highlight videos. People are finding them fun, motivational, whatever. Go check those out. Today, David Francisco joins us. David is well known for his music. He appeared in 2018 on American Idol, making it all the way to Hollywood Week. He also appeared on Ellen and a million other places. David is constantly performing, producing, speaking, and providing a bunch of other good content. David also happens to be recovering from a spinal cord injury, and he is thriving. David is now releasing his single, Lionheart, on the 3rd anniversary of his accident. So let's jump into this and let David tell his story. So what's up, David Francisco? Thanks for being here, man.
Of course. This is awesome.
David, I got a joke for you before I get this going. What does my show and Ellen DeGeneres' show have in common?
Uh-oh. I don't know.
We both got the same guest, man. I'm pretty honored to have you on. It's pretty amazing. You're everywhere. You like that?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, David,
That's
man.
Awesome.
It's a privilege to talk to you. I feel lucky to have you on, man. You've come a long way over the last 3 years. A lot happened. And right now you're sharing a bunch of stories, man. You got 30 stories you're releasing over the days in preparation for the release of Lionheart, your new single. But Lionheart wouldn't have happened, man. It would not have happened if it wasn't for April 27th, 2016. It probably would not have happened in its form. A lot happened. What happened on that day, man?
Yeah. Well, it was a sunny day in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I was biking home from my audio engineering class on a bicycle, pedaling, and I get to the last intersection, and the light turns green, and I'm beside the car in the front. We start going, and the car on my left slams on their brakes because what they could see what I could not see, which was another car actually coming perpendicular through the intersection, running a red light, and it was just fateful timing. I was going, and I couldn't see it, and I got T-boned at about 35 miles an hour is what I've been told. I've talked to the person that was behind the driver, actually said my body went about 10 feet in the air. That might be exaggeration, but still, body went flying. I was bleeding out on the road from my arm, actually, unconscious, so I don't remember any of this. But if a Jimmy John's driver hadn't, a delivery driver, hadn't stopped and put a tourniquet on my arm, I probably would have bled out right there.
Oh, wow.
So it was wild. I don't remember any of it, but I do remember waking up in the hospital and being like, wait, why are my legs off the bed? And my parents had gotten there at this time, which was actually at least 3 hours later because they had to drive from Knoxville to Nashville. And they said, they are on the bed. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I looked down. Sure enough, there's my legs on the bed, but I couldn't feel them.
I've heard these stories before. You know, I talked to a lot of people that have gone through spinal cord injuries, and they're really intense, especially in the hospital, especially coming out of it. Your life, though, going into that accident, you're a really intelligent person. People know you as a musician, but you're also trained as an electrical engineer. You have a strong education, and you got into the prestigious Blackbird Academy or Blackbird School, which is a musical performance school there in Nashville. And that's what brought you to Nashville. What was your path prior to this injury, prior to you ending up in this hospital bed?
Yeah, good question. So my actual passion was recording music with people. So having a small studio set up and having these little indie artists come and record with me. I was doing that for about 2 years in Knoxville when I decided to move to Nashville. The school focuses actually on recording music in the studio setting, and the studio is owned by Martina McBride's husband. Mm-hmm. So it's a really great studio, and they have some of the best gear and some great teachers. And that was my path was I'm going to be the best audio engineer I can be so I can have this lifestyle. And when the crash happened, I thought I lost everything. I thought I lost that whole dream.
Did you you almost bled out of your arm, and I imagine that impacted your thought process as you're going into this. This is my machine. This is what I use to do what I love.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't talk much about it because obviously the more significant injury was my spine, as far as long-term effects. But yeah, my arm was bleeding out. My parents were actually more concerned about my arm from what they had heard, because people told them, we don't know what happened. He just went to the hospital. But, they called my mom from my cell phone that was in my pocket, said, his arm was bleeding out. He's going to be okay. But if it was my son, I would definitely come to Nashville. So that's what they thought. And then on the drive, they found out that it was a spinal cord injury. And the doctor even said, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. His arm's not that bad. He has a spinal cord injury. And that was...
I've interviewed a lot of people in a realm of adapting to something difficult. You know what's unique about your story? You have that phone call of the doctor talking to a family member, maybe your mom, it sounds like. That's pretty intense. That's in this documentary that's called Back to Blackbird, Blackbird being the school you're at. That's a pretty intense call. Do you listen to that comfortably?
Oh, never. And I actually play it. So when I've been doing school presentations where I talk about driver safety and all that, and I play a clip with that audio behind a video of some biker cycling, and it's really intense. I still can't really comfortably listen to it.
No, man, that was really intense phone call. That documentary's really good. If you want to get listeners, if you want to really get into David Francisco and get an introduction, it's 2017 based, I think, the video. So you get a really good idea of the early part of the first 3 years, I guess, early to mid part of the first 3 years. It's really rad. It's really well done, man. And we get to see Blackbird too. That was pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, you're in a hospital bed, man. And a lot of people are going to ask you this question, when did you know you had a spinal cord injury? I want to know, though, when did you know you had possibilities that you're going to go back and hit it again, become an artist again?
Wow. Well, what's even more incredible about the school is the people, and they offered me a full ride back to the school.
Dang.
And they said they were going to build me wheelchair ramps, whatever I needed. We want him back. It doesn't matter if we have to literally build these ramps to get him from studio to studio. But that gave me so much hope. Wait, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I can still have some sort of career. And I met a guy early on named Mike Latanzi, who actually had an incredible studio in Nashville that he runs out of his wheelchair. He was paralyzed on a bicycle as well, actually, mountain biking. And so that gave me a lot of hope in the early days. You know what? I don't know what life's going to look like. It's still depressing. I'm still crying every day. But I had at least something to hold on to. I mean, the people around me and then the encouragement from the music community were kind of the earliest, I guess, signs of hope.
You know what? A lot of people don't understand that when somebody goes through such an intense event like you went through, thoughts of a lot imagine depression, but they don't imagine the other sides, the feelings like, am I going to be abandoned? Is anybody going to be around me again? You know, like, what am I going to have? Especially when you're young. You were young when this happened, man.
Yeah.
And so did you go through that process?
Oh, I mean, it was much more than just like, I can't run again. It was, I can't be independent. I don't think I'm going to be in a romantic relationship because, like, why would I ask someone to be my caretaker, basically, or so I thought at the time. That's how I felt, was helpless. And so why would anyone be with me? And then, even playing with my kids someday or having kids someday, I didn't know what the future looked like in any of those regards.
I go through that thought process to this day, playing with my kids.
Yeah.
I do have kids, and I go through that thought process to this day, is like perceived, internal ideas of what's strong, what's weak, or whatever. And that going through that process, but it makes me think of statements you've made, which are so important, is that you got to this mindset, it seems like, where you got out of what happens next week or next month or next year or 30 years from now. You got down to like the present day. How'd you even get there?
Oh, wow. Very good. So, basically it was a struggle in my mind, and I'm generally a guy that likes to think through the future, and like it felt almost irrational or kind of, I guess, ignorant to not think about those long-term things. And because eventually I was like, I might have to process this, but one of the smartest things I think I did was say, like, mentally choose not to worry about those things and turn that faucet off of long-term thoughts, because they were so dark and would really bring me down. It was a choice. It wasn't easy either.
Yeah, I imagine. Another thing that I think of too when we're talking about this is I watched a video of you. You're on a treadmill and you're like, I'm struggling to hit that 1 mile. And people at the gym, my thought was, maybe he's thinking like the people at the gym don't understand, what I've been through and what I'm doing right now. And I can relate to that. I can totally relate to that. And many people can relate to that now you went from somebody who's out cycling, running around, and probably pretty healthy. You look really healthy all the time, but like then I imagine you felt even more so, and you could crush it on a bike and other things. And now you struggle for that mile. How'd you adapt to that idea?
Honestly, I get excited when I have those victories. It was never really, the hardest part was the first days, but I kind of became addicted to overcoming, is how I put it, is like, okay, in therapy today, we're going to try to do stairs, even though I can't even walk independently. And they would challenge me like that. And so it wasn't that it would sometimes overwhelm me, and I would just break down and cry about, like, this is just ridiculous. Like, look at me trying to do this, and I can't even do 1% of it. But the important thing was feeling like I was accomplishing something and overcoming it. And I focused on those little victories. The first time my foot moved, the first time I was able to stand with a harness attached to the ceiling, the first time I was able to stand in a walker, and then the first steps I was able to take. It was more like, wow, I'm like accomplishing things. And it was actually more of that feeling.
Nice, man. That's a good perspective. Now you talk about how you started to feel more connections, and you, like with your foot, you're starting to move in a different way than you were used to, or maybe perceive things, feel things different. That reminds me of the Core Center, Aaron Baker, out near you where you're located now. Aaron Baker is your friend. What other resources did you use to start to realize there's possibilities instead of probabilities that they laid out before you?
Well, it's interesting because we did look for those stats, the facts, and then a lot of videos. And Aaron's was one of the videos that I saw when I was early on. Like, probably one of the first videos we found was I Am Aaron Baker on YouTube, and he just talks about exactly what I was going through. The first, like using every ounce of your energy just to think about your big toe moving,
Gotcha.
or your foot, your ankle, whatever. And that was just like, wow. And then this guy what's he doing now? He's mountain biking again. And yeah, so we did look for those kind of stories.
Aaron Baker was always somebody I looked to, not just for spinal cord injury, but everything across the board. I thought he was just a leading example, and his mom too, about looking at those possibilities. I mentioned him a lot. Now, one thing I want to talk about is, like, you talked a little bit about dating. You know, you did date, and you found your partner in crime, your partner in life, and this partner's been so important to you. When did you start dating again, man?
This I see. It's funny because I wasn't even trying to make a move, to be honest. I was again, like I said, with turning off the long-term thoughts, I just turned off the relationship thoughts. So I was like, I'm not even gonna think about relationships right now because it'll just depress me. Let alone try to be in one, because I didn't feel emotionally stable in those first months. But about 4 months in, someone that I had met one time before the crash actually reached out to me on, so she had actually written me a handwritten letter in the hospital because she was affected by my music. And then when she heard about the crash, she felt the need to reach out, which was insane and kind of a divine prompting, if you will. But so then 4 months later, I got invited, again, the support of the music community, got invited to a music awards show called the Pensado Awards in California. Mm-hmm. And California is where this girl was living. And again, not trying to make a move or anything, but I almost felt the need to thank her properly for the letter. It was one of the most encouraging ones I got. Yeah. And so I ended up messaging her and saying, hey, I'm coming to California. Are you around? And it was like a really cheesy message, but sure enough, she was able to meet for coffee, and we caught up. I rolled out to her in the wheelchair, and she had only met me once before, but was not fazed by the wheelchair at all and could see that it was still me. And I had just had one of the coolest nights of my life the night before too, so I was pretty amped on life. So we had a good time just hanging out, not trying to make a move. But then my dad swoops in, and he was kind of the wingman. He ended up inviting her to a music festival, the Kaboo Festival, that we were going to be going to the next month in San Diego. So the next month we go to this music festival, and that's when we really connected. She came for a day and a half, I think, and at the different stages, everyone's standing up. So my dad and her get on either side of me, lift me up, and actually allow me to watch the show. But I'm basically standing all day with my arm around this girl that is like beautiful, but I'm not trying to make a move because I still don't know. But this trip, I'm kind of like, what is this? Maybe this is something, but how could it be happening to me? Like, I still don't believe that I'm really worth being in a relationship with yet. So I was just very surprised, and the way I put it is she saw past the wheelchair. And so anyway, after that, it was pretty clear that there was something, and I wrote her a song called She Makes Me Want to Sing, and which is actually online right now. And then she a month later came to Tennessee, and that's when it kind of became official. I mean, after that trip, I kind of knew that we were going to be together forever.
It was fate, right? It was fate for sure.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I mean, how could I end up with this girl from California when I had never been, I'd been to California one other time in my life. And then all of a sudden 2 trips that were planned for me to California, and her and the letter and all of it is very crazy. I mean, I don't know if it was directly divine or if it was just crazy coincidence or what, but it's been incredible for sure.
Something really important to state is that you do play music, as we're saying over and over, and you are a performer. You perform at a high level. You appeared on American Idol, and you didn't just appear on American Idol. You had 42 million freaking people watching you, man. That had to have flipped you out.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I almost didn't even go to the audition. They
No.
invited me to come, and
What?
they were like, "Oh, you should come to the audition." And I was like, well, see, I had tried out for America's Got Talent the year before
Mhm.
and never got a call back. And so I was like, I don't know about these shows. It's probably not for me. Anyway, I did go to the audition, and they wanted me to do the real audition. And I was like, whoa, this is actually happening. And so then a couple months later was the audition for the judges that everyone saw. And it was incredible. I mean, they did a really good job telling the story. They didn't fluff it up because I guess they didn't need to. Honestly, it's pretty insane. But yeah, I was honored by how they showed it. I didn't sound my worst. I didn't sound my best, but it could always be worse. So
You sounded good, man.
Thanks. It was an incredible experience.
I will say that it was pretty cool to watch it again and see Katy Perry and them cry, because your story's that intense, your story's that cool. And then seeing you and your wife, your now wife, I think she was girlfriend then, kind of just like, I don't know, there's an energy there, man. It was pretty cool to see all of that. But coming out of this though, you also took on almost a role model feel for people that have gone through some tough stuff. And you use terms for it. You use perseverance. You use other terms, redemption. And I want to kind of jump into this because you are on a mode of redemption. What does that mean to you? What does this word mean to you, redemption?
Yeah, redemption to me means a broken thing being made beautiful, like being turned around and made into something even better. And I actually am a Christian. I do believe in God, and I've heard some pretty crazy stories from the Bible that just relate so much to my own journey. Like the story of Joseph. Basically, he's like sold into slavery, and then that slavery ends up saving the entire people of Israel. That there's so many, and it doesn't even have to be biblical. There's just so many examples of that in everyday life where something really awful brings about so much life. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that's just built into the world that I'm happy to be a small part of that redemption and to have that example in my own life.
Not to put more pressure on your shoulders, but you have a larger audience than most, especially coming out of spinal cord injury. You have a larger audience than most that have gone through that injury, and you speak a lot. And you were mentioning you speak at schools and you speak in other venues or arenas. What is your message that you're going out there spreading? Is it redemption? Is it other stuff?
Well, it's a couple things. One of them that actually is really powerful is forgiveness. And you might have that question later, but I'll go ahead and jump into it. I forgave the driver that paralyzed me pretty early on, like pretty much right when they told me. I was like, well, is she okay? Like, what's going on? And the reason I was able to do that is, one, because I had community and family around me supporting and loving me. And that was just built into my framework for life is like, I have to forgive her. She didn't even mean to do it. She made a mistake, obviously a big mistake. And I found out later that she was a heavy drug user and was not in the right state of mind when she was driving that day. But regardless, I was also kind of practical about it. Like it's going to just weigh me down if I hold this. And then also, it's going to ruin her life. And I wanted, again, to bring redemption and to bring life. And for me, one of the biggest ways was forgiveness.
That was amazing. You didn't just forgive, though. You went out and kind of, I'm not saying sang it to the world. You actually spoke it to the world that you forgave her. Maybe you did. Maybe you made a song about it too. But you really did. You shared with millions and millions that you forgive this person that changed you. But you know, that change has had such dramatic impacts on so many, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You really do.
Yeah, and it's really been cool to share that part of it, because there's been people at the schools I talk at where they'll come up and they'll be like, I've never thought of forgiveness that way, or you know, comments and messages online, and it's been one of the most powerful things as I share. And then the other thing that I share is not a victim, and that's kind of like, I want to get shirts that say "not a victim," because I want people to be empowered to not be victims of their circumstances. So basically, what I mean by that is, I was technically a victim. I was a victim of a car crash, and it happened to me. It wasn't my fault. And I could leave it there. I could dwell on that, and I'm justified in that technically. But man's final freedom is the ability to choose how we respond to what happens to us. And I got that from a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh, my favorite.
And yeah, that's one that I read pretty early on, and I was like, holy cow, like, I can choose how I respond to this crash, which means that I don't have to be a victim forever. I can make the most of whatever situation I'm in. So when I'm in therapy, I'm gonna not just bicker and complain. I'm gonna go to therapy first of all, and then I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna see what comes back. I don't know if I'll walk, but I'll at least see what I get, and I'll try to make a full life, and I'll, again, just not be a victim, which also includes forgiving the driver. And so that's kind of something that I empower people with, is it's about the choice to not be a victim. Once you figure that out, you can accomplish almost anything, and actually use the tragedies that happen to make you stronger.
You know, that I will buy that shirt, by the way, not a victim. You also have the shirt you have a great shirt online. I was going to ask you about that. Back to Blackbird, which is a great shirt. It's a good t-shirt, man. It looks like Bella Canvas print, everything. I don't know, something like that. Either way.
It is.
Yeah, man, it has the feel, man. I can tell. And you have good products on there. But the point is that you're always producing. You're producing products. You're doing whatever it takes to support these messages that you're putting out there. And it's pretty amazing to see, but you've encountered a lot of stories. We talked about how you're airing stories of more public figures, but do you encounter the difficult stories? Most recently we've been talking about, in at least on the podcast, on the social media side, people that I interact with, is depression and going through those significant periods of just maybe wanting to not go on anymore, something like that. We've heard a lot of stories and heard some very unfortunate situations. Do you encounter those types of things when you're out there speaking? And if so, what do you say?
That's hard. I mean, I haven't had too many people come up and be suicidal or like too depressed, but I've definitely had people say that they were encouraged to like change the way they think about their lives. And I think what I would say is, you can find a purpose in your suffering, and the key is to look for it. It's not going to happen to you. I think too many people are victims again, and let life happen to them, and let their circumstances define how happy they are. And you know what? No one is treated fair. And it's even kind of ridiculous to judge, like, how was I treated fair? I kind of think I'm lucky, even though I could think that the spinal cord injury is like obviously a really awful thing. But I had family around me, and I had community that was supporting me. So I'm lucky in that sense, but I could also focus on the negative, and I'm unlucky. So my point is, I think everyone is lucky and unlucky, and it's never going to be fair. And if you're trying to if you're waiting for life to be fair, you're going to be sad your whole life. So what I would say is, don't be a victim, and don't let what happens to you define you. Let not being a victim inspire you to choose how you respond to what happens. And that will make all the difference.
That's a cool message of hope, which is something kind of a theme of your life, is Ride for Hope. You even have a Ride for Hope, and it's kind of an awareness-based operation, if you will. Can you tell us what Ride for Hope is?
Yeah. So long story short, one of my teachers at the audio school in Nashville is an avid cyclist, and he ended up getting a group of his music audio biker friends together, and along with me, and they wanted to do a fundraiser for me, like a charity bike ride. But it ended up being like, we multiplied it like 100 times from that. Basically, Christy, my wife, and I rode a tandem bike with them instead of it just being them raising money for us. We rode a tandem over 200 miles of the 500-mile trek with them, from San Francisco to LA, and raised money for Music Cares, which is a nonprofit that's associated with the Grammys, that felt like the right fit. They actually supported me when I was in Nashville, so it felt right to give back to them. And so the ride was really about me showing and proving, like, you can do more than you realize. Watch, I was paralyzed, and now I'm going to ride my bike. I don't know how far I'm going to go, but we ended up going over 200 miles on a tandem bicycle. And so the whole point is, to show that there's so much possibility when you don't limit yourself.
Surely you could pick out the cool, I don't know, it's a really neat factor of this is that you were injured on a bike and you got up on a bike and you rode for hope. That's pretty cool message. I'm sure you guys discussed that in 200 freaking miles while you're driving down the coastline, or riding down the coastline, right?
Totally.
If you look at your life over 3 years, over this 3 years, it's now been 3 years almost. Wow. Yeah. Pretty close.
Next week.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, does it feel like a memory now, or does it still feel really like real, the event?
I don't know. Where am I at today? Honestly, I am so far from it mentally now that, I mean, I talk about it all the time, but it doesn't affect me at all. Like, as far as how, like, I don't wake up and I don't think about the crash and like what happened. I think, I mean, obviously my legs affect me every day. I'm still weak. I can walk independently pretty long distances now, actually. But I still can't do stairs with my left leg. But the limitations are less and less every day. And I'm still 3 years later doing training and still getting stronger. So even, you remember earlier I said it's all in the first year, or like most of it. Well, I would say that I am like more than double where I was after the first year.
Wow.
Just like really improving. And even when I moved into this house with my wife, at first I couldn't do the stairs, the little steps into it, but now I'm doing them without holding on to anything. And so that's from year 2 to year 3 of the crash that I've gotten that much stronger. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. And I'm planning to just keep working out until I'm snowboarding and mountain biking, and may as well try, right?
Yeah, for sure. You need to get out there while you're still young, because there's a ton of options, a ton of opportunities. But I'm starting to feel old, man. I'm every bit of 38. It feels tough to compete and hang with these young ones, these young lions out there. But so get out there while you can, man.
True that.
Yeah, but I think one thing that I can't help when I was researching, when I was preparing for this interview, is that there's 3 years. You were on a path. Like I said earlier in the interview, you were an electrical engineer, and then you're going after your passion. You're following your music, and you're going to go do this. And then you have an accident, and you end up in a hospital bed with a spinal cord injury. And we hear your mom's voice being delivered news. We can hear that online, and I'll link that in the notes, and then you can keep going and you see where you got to eventually try out an American Idol. And then we have YouTube videos of you just like hanging out with like celebrities and playing music and Martina McBride and all this other crazy stuff that's going on. A lot happened between trauma, tragedy, maybe not a victim, whatever we want to label it as, but a lot happened. What did this teach you all about life?
Wow. Well, I've learned that you have to adapt, or like that adaptability is one of the strongest traits you can have, because eventually, and I just talked about this earlier on an interview, was eventually something's going to happen that's going to make you have to change some expectation that you had on life, or like something that you wanted to do. And if you're not willing to be open and to explore alternatives, I think it'll make it really hard. But like I said, I was willing to explore alternatives, and I was fully independent in the wheelchair before I even got out of the wheelchair walking. And I think being able to adapt to that, and it's funny because I was trying to figure out, like, well, I guess I'm not going to be able to play piano if I can't do the foot pedal, or something. We're going to have to adapt. What's the music going to look like? Didn't think I'd be touring, but it's ironic now. I tour and I travel more than I ever did before the crash. So, yeah, it's that's one thing that I've learned. I guess I would say the other thing is just the value of community and the value of people. One of my songs is called "Love Is What Keeps Us Alive," and that was literally true for me in those early days. Is I had over 100 visitors the first week, and they would just sit with me, and we'd hang out, and that was so encouraging, just knowing I've got people. So those are a couple of the things I learned. There's a lot of different stuff that I learned.
Well, I think of this, man. I think of your life. You know, when you say that, you had a lot of visitors, you had a lot of community, but you had a lot of ups and downs. And the reality is that people may look at your life story and say, man, it's turning out great. But they don't realize it was really tough at points, you know? And now we're sitting talking right now, and your wife is in the room, I believe still, or was at least, and you're in sunny California, and it could have been different. It could have been, and we're not necessarily focusing on it could have beens, but you're really in a great spot where you're with your partner and you've gone through so much and you're doing so well.
Yeah, it really, you know what? It makes it hard to complain, because actually I don't think anyone's ever justified in complaining. And I'll tell you why. Is I was in the hospital. I couldn't move my legs. My back was in pain every day. Really bad pain to where I couldn't even sit up for more than 5-10 minutes. And I could not complain because the guy next door had a neck like a neck injury, and couldn't move anything from the neck down, and was controlling a wheelchair with a straw that he would blow into in different ways to control his wheelchair. And I'm like, how can I complain about where I'm at right now when this guy can't do anything with his arms, can't do, like, he's sitting, he's completely dependent on people. And if he's still got life and he's still got something that he can find joy in, there's no way I should be complaining. So literally now, I mean, it's just like I keep getting showered with blessings, and it's kind of insane. But I'm never going to complain about anything. I still have bowel and bladder issues. Like, I can't poop or pee on my own. I still, have some leg pain sometimes, and obviously can't do any sports yet or anything. So I am not fully healed. And I may never be. I want to be. I might be. Who knows? But my point is, I can't complain, and I don't think anyone should complain. I think I have it better than a lot of people, and I think I have it worse than a lot of people. And regardless, if you just complain about I think in America especially, like the Western world, like we compare so much. Like, oh, they've got that. Like, I want that. I think it's really dangerous and unhealthy, and that's probably why we have so much depression and suicide, is because of the comparison.
It's tough, and I do believe that's the case. The last week or so has really hit home. A lot of people are definitely hurting, and life can be changed on a split. You know the deal. It can be changed so quick, and just building a community that cares about each other. And I really do care, and having people that just care. I think that's so utterly essential, man, nowadays.
Totally.
Man, it's crazy. Now, what about, David, going forward, man? You've already built, you're building your empire. You really do. You have an empire. You have your own studio. You bring in artists all the time. You're collaborating all the time. You're dropping albums. You're dropping singles. You have your single dropping on April 27th, right? April 27th of this year.
Well, we wanted to do it on the 27th because that's the actual anniversary of the crash, but we're doing it on the 26th because I guess the industry standard is to do it on Fridays. So we're dropping Lionheart, the first song off the album, April 26th.
What are you going to do next, man? I know you're going to be an artist, but what is the future going to be for you?
Man, I love what I do. It's kind of funny because yesterday I spent 16 hours straight just doing stuff to make the album happen, to make a little secret that I'll let you in on, the book happen.
Nice.
To make the I guess the producing stuff that I'm doing happen. So I actually have my studio set up here still, and am recording more music than ever, my own and other people's. And that's been really fun. I don't know if you saw the shed sessions I've been putting up. But,
awesome. They're freaking cool, man. Those are really nice.
Thanks. Yeah. So, honestly, I love what I do. And if I can keep doing that, and I mean, I need to start making more money. So like I guess just the logistics have to improve, but they will. I'm not worried about it. It's more just, I love this lifestyle and the flexibility of being a musician, and I get to stay home with the animals, and I can pop out to the studio and then pop in and do an interview like this, So I feel very, very blessed and very fortunate. And honestly, like my dream was having a wife half as good as Christian, so it's been pretty special to have that.
Yeah, life's good for you, man, for sure. And do you see yourself going out, speaking to schools, continuing to do that, continuing to reach out to others that are struggling?
Totally. I actually, this new passion is beginning to develop for speaking engagements, more so than just the music. And what I've done at the schools is I'll show some video clips, I'll talk, and then I'll play some songs. And it's high schoolers, and they're completely silent. And I think it's because, one, I'm kind of younger, and so they feel like they can kind of relate. And two, it's because I just keep it diverse and keep it interesting. And then playing music is a unique way for me to present. So it's been really, really fun doing that. And I definitely want to do that in the future more, because getting to combine the story with the music is really powerful, and it resonates hardcore with a lot of audiences.
And did you just start working on a book, or are we going to see it in the near future?
The book is almost done. It will, and this is, again, I'm not even put this out there, but I'm happy to share it with you, is we're putting the book out hopefully when the full album comes out in the fall. So it's single, and then we're actually going to do a couple EPs released, which are all part of the album, and then in the fall we'll be releasing the full album.
Speaking to you, and I just feel this positivity, you know what I mean? You have a real positive attitude, a real positive message, and it's, I don't know, magnetic, I guess you will. And also you have great hair, by the way. I don't have hair anymore. You have some gray hair, man. And so like,
thanks.
Yeah. But you have like, you have a lot going on for you, and it's really cool to like sit down, talk with you, hear some of your story, man. And we're going to share everything we can. And that includes when your book comes out. I'd love to talk to you again and hear about it and just hang out with you, man. It's awesome to hear your stuff. And I feel like it's a privilege to talk to you, and I really appreciate you being here.
For sure. Thank you so much, Scott.
All right, that's the episode. Remember, you can find contact information for guests in the show notes or on our website, livingadaptive.com. On livingadaptive.com, you can also find previous episodes, writings, and a bunch of other good stuff. So go there. Peace.